Hey Fearless Gamers, James from Fearless Games here, and I'm excited to do this video because it's the start of a series of videos on Battletech. Battletech is probably my first sci-fi game I ever got really into, and I got into it on the video game level first, before I even knew there were miniatures for it. Never really learned the miniatures rules, well, not really, I never ever learned the rules for the miniature game, but that's all going to change. And I got into these when I was a kid, so it's been a while. And I've always been a fan of Battletech. And this video is just gonna be a video overview, just a basic overview of what Battletech is, really for the miniature game. Because Battletech has been around the block in terms of different media. It's been novels, toys, a cartoon show, comics. It's had video games and PC games galore. It also has virtual pods. It's been around. The miniature game itself is at least 25 years old. I say at least because if I could speak, this introductory box set that I have here is a 25th anniversary box set, and it's at least a year old because I bought it around a year ago, if not more. So, it has existed for a long time, and you may know the title Mech Warrior, Mech Commander, or Mech Assault, or Mech Warrior Dark Ages, which is actually a click game, which is interesting because a click game and a miniature game exist for the same universe. Mech Warrior, Mech Assault, Mech Commander, Mech Warrior Dark Ages, that's all lumped under the overarching name Battletech. Like, that's all the same universe. Produced by different companies, but the same universe. So, Battletech, the miniature game. An overview of it is produced by Catalyst Game Labs. They make the rules for the game, the books. The miniatures themselves are produced by Ironwind Metals. Now, I don't know who produced the introductory box set miniatures because they're plastic, but the miniatures for the bulk of the game that everybody who plays the game picks up and paints up and plays with are from Ironwind, and they are pewter. So what is Battletech? I rambled on well and good, but what is it really? Well, Battletech is a game of armored combat, as it would say, and it focuses chiefly on the battle mech, or mech for short, which are these two guys in this artwork here. What is a battle mech? A battle mech is a tall, lumbering war machine of destruction piloted by a mech warrior who sits in the cockpit, usually in the head, well, pretty much always the head. If you read up like a description of Battletech, you'll read up how they're pretty much 30 feet tall, 3 stories, 30 feet, maybe bigger, maybe a little bit shorter. War engines of destruction. They're powered by a reactor. They are equipped with a whole bunch of weapons, from energy-based weapons to projectile-based weapons and missiles. They are different weight classes, from light to medium to heavy to assault. And a light mech is around 25 tons, let's say, and an assault mech can push upwards of 100 tons in weight of the mech itself. The lighter the mech, the quicker it usually is, and the more frail it is usually. The heavier the mech, the more armor it has, the more weaponry it has, and as a rule, it's usually slow. Usually the slower it is. So that's a good judge. The lighter the weight, the quicker the mech. The heavier the weight, the slower the mech. But also, the lighter the mech, the more frail it is, and the heavier the mech, the more hardy and dangerous it is in terms of weaponry. And there are tanks, and there are planes, and there are infantry formations, but really the bulk and the poster child of the game is the mech. You can't think Battletech without thinking of battle mechs. And I'm not going to get into the fluff of it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different factions. There's the overarching inner sphere, there's the clans, and in and amongst that is a whole bunch of factions. But I will say it's all human-based. It's humanity fighting itself throughout the stars. It's set in the future, sci-fi game, as you would imagine. And these mechs are very industrial looking. They're very gritty and grimy and grungy. They they're well maintained and well kept, but they're not graceful. They lumber. Even the ones that are quick are kind of like not very graceful as either. They're all about function, not form. And even the ones that are kind of built with form in mind are there to intimidate. And really, it's all about just slapping the weapons onto the chassis and keeping it armored and taking out the opponent. And I like that about Battletech. I like the fact that it's not about form and it's pretty much all about function. What I also like is it's not just, oh, I have a mech, you have a mech. It's the same mech, just with different colors. Yes, that may be so. There may be two hunchbacks on the table, which is this guy, by the way. There may be two hunchbacks on either side, but there's different weight classes of mechs, and within those weight classes, there's a whole plethora of mechs to choose from. Each one with different weapon loadouts and different characteristics. Some may be slower, some may be faster. Some may have jump jets to temporarily jump over obstacles. Things like that. Excuse me. And that makes it interesting because it's not just cookie cutter mechs out there. They're all. You may have mechs, mech formation comprised of different mechs that are completely different from your opponent, who may have different selection of mechs, and that's what keeps it cool, and it makes it a bit more interesting, a bit more seat of your pants type of thing, because you can't possibly really keep track of every. I mean, you could, but it's really difficult to keep track of every mech out there in the different weight classes for what you're fighting against. So you never really know what you're up against, type of thing, and it keeps that type of interesting feel. Like I said, there are tanks and other vehicles and infantry, but they're really there to support the mechs. When a mech hits the battlefield, everybody knows about it, everybody's worried about it. When they see tanks come in, yeah, if it's a really big, heavy tank, and the tanks follow the same weight class as the mech, so you can have a 60-ton tank, which is a big tank. But when they're on the battlefield, unless you have nothing but light mechs, and you see a 60-ton tank, maybe you'll be a little worried. But when another mech is on the battlefield, that's when you really worry. At least that's when I really worry. And I've only ever seen tanks here and there as support. But they can be quite useful, but really people really start to sweat when there's a whole bunch of mechs that they're staring down. Anyways, with that being said, it's a unique type of miniature game. They're on hex basis. It's not circle or square base, but hex. And they use a map system. So you play on a hex-based battle map, which is a little discouraging at first, but I will tell you right here and now, there are rules that they offer in one of their advanced books for converting it to a hexless style of gameplay, more like what we're used to in miniature wargaming. But the hexes are there to make everything simple. That's how they measure distance. That's how they determine line of sight, firing arc, facing, and everything, and movement. So it's not really going to be there to impede you. It's the way the game works. It's just not as cool looking because it's 2D as opposed to having 3D terrain. But that's how it works. And the mechs have data sheets. Everything you have is going to have a sheet of paper with all this information on it. It's more in-depth than War Machine or Hordes may be with their cards. The sheet of paper for the mechs keep track of everything. Ammo expenditure for your weapons, because you can run out of ammo in this game. Heat. Building up heat's a bad thing, but it's a natural progress. You know, doing stuff with the mech will build up heat. There's a keep track of your heat build-up and dissipation, and if you don't dissipate enough heat and you build up too much, you have heat tables that you have to worry about. Critical damage tables for different parts of your mech. Different parts of your mech have different hit locations. You have your legs. Each one is its own separate hit location. Your arms are your own separate hit locations. Your torso is divided down into the left, center, and right torso. Each which have their own armor and structural locations. The head has its own location. And there's a hit diagram to determine where the mech is hit if it is struck by a weapon. There's the mech data, the mech warrior data. a lot of stuff is kept tracked on that sheet, and the reason it's so technical is, in my opinion, to really represent how hardy a mech is and how hard it is to bring a mech down, even a light one, unless you have another mech or a really big tank. And that's just my opinion. It also makes it feel more like they're piloting a mech and not just infantry. Like, if an infantry had his arm torn off, it's not unreasonable to think that that unit is lost. But when a mech loses its arm, it's just a machine. Yes, they have neurofeed helmets, so it kind of, will affect the pilot a bit. But the machine can keep on going. And I think that's why it's there, to represent the fact that you blow off my mech's arm, so I'm going to blow off your mech's face, type of thing. So that's pretty much, excuse me, it. I know I said about 13 million times, but trying to describe Battletech in a basic overview is a little more difficult than I thought it would be. Now, if you want to learn more about Battletech itself in terms of fluff, or you want to get your hands on the rules, you can go to Catalyst Game Lab's website. I'll put a link up in the video description section for their Battletech section of their site. There's 2 PDFs you can download. One is just like a history of the Inner Sphere, history of Battletech a little bit, the fluff. Another one is quick start rules that you can download to play. It has rules, it has cutouts for mechs, and it has cutouts from the map, I think. And you can play the quick start rules for free and see if you enjoy it and you enjoy the basics. If you like the basics, you're gonna like it as it gets more advanced. So, at least that's my methodology and my thought on it anyway. So, those are 2 PDFs you can download for free, and with those 2 downloads, on top of looking up Battletech stuff online, you can really determine if you're going to be interested in continuing, pursuing, and purchasing Battletech miniature wargaming stuff. So, fearless gamers, that's it. It's a bit long, but a lot to cover, and it's just the basics. So, hope you've enjoyed, and until next time, take it easy.